The locks stop opening. The guards stop coming. And suddenly 2 million people are trapped in concrete boxes with no food, no water, and no way out. When collapse hits, prisons don't get evacuated. They get abandoned. And what happens next is one of the darkest scenarios most people never consider, because those facilities don't just disappear. They become pressure cookers of violence, starvation, and desperation that eventually explode outward into surrounding communities. You need to understand this, not because you're in prison, but because you might live near one. And when the guards leave, the inmates don't just stay locked up forever. Let me walk you through the timeline. Day 1. The shift change doesn't happen. Guards who were supposed to leave can't because replacements never arrived. Some stay, most don't. They have families. They have their own survival to worry about. And prison guard isn't a job worth dying for when society is collapsing outside. By day 2, maybe half the staff is gone. The ones remaining are trying to maintain order with numbers that don't work anymore. Meals get skipped because kitchen staff abandoned their posts. Water pressure drops because municipal systems are failing. Inmates start realizing something is very wrong. Day 3 is when it breaks. The remaining guards make a choice. Stay and potentially die, or leave and save themselves. Almost all of them leave. They take the keys, they take the weapons, and they walk out. The doors lock behind them automatically. And now you have thousands of people sealed inside a facility with no food, water, and no authority. What happens next depends on the facility type and inmate population. Maximum security prisons have electronic locks that require power. When the grid dies, those locks either fail open or fail close depending on the system. Fail-safe systems unlock during power loss to prevent people from being trapped during fires. Fail-secure systems stay locked. Most modern facilities use fail-secure for obvious reasons, but backup generators only run for 72 hours. Maximum, usually less. When those die, the electronic systems fail completely. In older facilities with mechanical locks, inmates are simply trapped. No power means no way to open the doors remotely, and those doors are designed to resist everything. 3-inch steel, reinforced frames, impossible to break through without industrial equipment. So you have 2 scenarios. In fail-open facilities, inmates get out within days. Fail-secure facilities, trapped until they die, or until someone cuts them out. The trapped scenario is nightmare fuel. No food deliveries, no water pumping after the pressure drops, toilets that don't flush, thousands of people in cells designed for lockdown, not long-term survival. Dehydration kills in 3 days. Panic and violence kill faster. Inmates will try everything, breaking through walls, which doesn't work because prison construction uses reinforced concrete specifically to prevent this. Starting fires to trigger fail-safe systems, which either doesn't work or kills everyone from smoke inhalation. Attempting to signal for help, which nobody responds to because everyone outside is dealing with their own survival. The strong take resources from the weak immediately. Water becomes the first battleground. Any inmate with access to a sink that still has pressure becomes a target. Violence escalates exponentially because there's no future, no consequence, no reason to hold back. Within a week, most trapped inmates are dead. Dehydration, violence, and suicide. The ones who survive are the ones who secured water sources and were willing to kill to keep them. But the fail-open scenario is what you need to worry about, because those inmates don't just sit around waiting to be rescued. They leave. And they leave dangerous, desperate, and with nothing to lose. When prison doors unlock during power failure, it's not an orderly evacuation, it's chaos. Rival gangs settle scores immediately. The violence inside the facility spikes as everyone realizes this might be their only chance. Then they move outward. Where do they go? Not far. Most inmates don't have transportation or resources. They head to the nearest populated areas looking for food, water, shelter. That means suburbs, neighborhoods. Your neighborhood, if you're within 10 miles of a facility. And here's what you're not understanding. These aren't people making rational decisions. They're traumatized, starving, possibly injured, operating on survival instinct and prison mentality. They've been conditioned by an environment where violence is currency and trust doesn't exist. That doesn't just turn off when they walk out the gate. Some will try to get home to families. Some will form groups and start looting systematically. Some will just wander until they die. But all of them represent a threat level that most suburban preppers aren't remotely prepared for. So, what do you actually do if you live near a prison facility? Because ignoring this risk is how you end up dealing with it unprepared. First, know where the facilities are. County jails, state prisons, federal penitentiaries. Know the distances, know the capacity. A facility with 500 inmates is a different threat than one with 5,000. Know the security level. Minimum security inmates are less dangerous than maximum security, but they're also more likely to successfully leave the facility. Second, understand that the early days of collapse are when this happens. Guards abandon posts within 72 hours typically. That means if you're bugging in, you need to be fortified and invisible before day 3. If you're bugging out, you need to be gone before the inmates get out. Third, harden your position if you're staying. This isn't about fighting off organized assaults, it's about not being an easy target. Reinforce entry points. Cover windows. Eliminate external signs that you have supplies. The goal is to be passed over in favor of easier targets, not to defend against determined attacks. Fourth, have escape routes planned if hardening fails. Know multiple ways out of your property and neighborhood, know where you're going, and have the ability to get there quickly. Because if a group of released inmates decides your house is their target, you're not winning that fight. You're leaving. Fifth, don't engage unless you have no choice. The fantasy of defending your property with firearms assumes you can win. You probably can't. Not against groups. Not against people with nothing to lose. Your best weapon is not being there when they arrive. The psychology matters. Inmates who've been locked up long-term don't think like people on the outside. They're operating on prison rules where showing weakness gets you killed, and taking what you need is survival. They're not going to knock politely and ask for help. They're going to take. Historical examples prove this. Hurricane Katrina, Orleans Parish Prison. Guards abandoned their posts. Inmates were left trapped in cells filled with toxic floodwater. Some drowned, others escaped. The ones who got out contributed to the chaos and violence that followed. New Orleans during Katrina is your blueprint for what happens when authority disappears and desperate people flood into communities. Argentina's economic collapse. Prison staff stopped showing up. Inmates organized their own systems inside and eventually negotiated releases or simply left when opportunity arose. The crime rate in surrounding areas spiked as released inmates had nowhere to go and no resources. Venezuela right now. Prison guards are barely maintaining control. Facilities are run by inmate gangs. When full collapse comes, those gates open, and thousands of violent criminals enter communities that can't defend against them. This isn't speculation, it's pattern recognition based on what's happened before. The timeline matters. When you see signs of imminent collapse, you have maybe 48 hours before prisons become a factor. That's your window to either secure your position or leave the area entirely. After that, you're reacting instead of preparing, and reaction gets you killed. Know your proximity, know the timeline, know your options. Because when the guards walk away, the inmates don't just disappear. They're coming. And whether you survive depends on whether you prepared for a threat most people don't even think about.